Hi everybody and welcome to the Humane Tech Meetup number 3. And I'm Kamil and this is Helen, and we will be your hosts, speakers, facilitators, whatever for today. And maybe a little bit about the meetup. It's the third time, the second time in Cologne. The last time was in Düsseldorf, and we try to bring this topic to the whole Rhineland area, so not only Cologne. So if you know somebody in Bonn or Aachen or somewhere else that want to host it, please tell us. I initiated this, I think like 2 months ago, and there I also met Helen. She was one of the people that came there. And what is the idea behind it? Actually, I for myself, in my work, I'm doing innovation, blah blah, and also in my private life, I recognize that my behavior is kind of changing through my tech consume and through all the social media technologies and everything. And I was researching what's going on, other people talking about that, and then I saw a blog post and a website from Tristan Harris. He's an ex-Google guy who initiated this Humane Tech movement. And right now it's a very hot topic also in the Silicon Valley, and it's kind of a no-no to do some things that make people addicted for technology. It's right now really a big topic there, but let's see how this will work out. And basically this is the thing we want to do here, to see how technology and we as humans can live together, work together, and how technology can serve us and not the other way around. And there are a lot of dimensions on this topic. So our very first meetup was a general panel discussions, and then we realized, well, there's so much things are going on there. So we decided now to focus on one topic, and I'm very happy that Helen is so much into this topic of loneliness and isolation in the connected world. And this is what we will do today. So this was it basically from my side now. Quick the agenda. So Helen will do a talk in a bit, a very cool, inspiring talk, and then we have some open questions, discussions, and then we want to do a little group brainstorming exercise, and we would really appreciate if you take part in that. And and then we just do networking, drinking beers, and this kind of stuff. So I think.
Okay. So before I begin, I just want to tell you a little bit about my background. So I'm a researcher and I'm also an artist. I did my studies in computer science in the University of Calgary in Canada, and then recently, just last year, I finished my PhD in human-computer interaction. And it's an area that's really interdisciplinary between computer science and psychology, anthropology, these kinds of things. And I've always been really interested in technologies for social good. For example, one of the projects I worked on was, nobody can see anything.
Yeah, you should come here, this is really interesting. It's amazing.
We can see anything.
It's amazing. You should move here, I'm next to room.
Alright.
Because honestly...
I will take Jay.
Yes.
Yeah, so in my master's I worked on the design of persuasive feedback technologies. So these are technologies that give you feedback about how much energy you're using and tries to persuade you to use energy in a more sustainable way. And then in my PhD, I was looking at how technology can reduce intercultural communication challenges in virtual teams. So these are teams that are spread all over the world, maybe in Germany, in India, or China. They have a lot of communication barriers with regards to culture and language. So that's what I was working on before. And I'm also an artist. I paint with acrylic, watercolor, things like that. And in this topic today, I was originally inspired because I wanted to bring the two together, so technology and art together, to see how we could connect people. Okay, so let's get into the topic. So as you know, we human beings are a social species. We're really wired to seek connection. Just as we have basic needs to satisfy thirst and hunger, we also are very much evolved to seek connection and a sense of belonging. But studies also show that loneliness is on the rise on a global scale. For example, in a recent study in the UK, it was found that a quarter of all age groups feel emotionally unconnected to other people. In the US, in a study in 2014, it was found that 12 to 23% of people feel that they have no one to confide in, and this was compared to 8% in 1985. In the European Union, it varies by country, but around 34% of people feel intense loneliness, particularly in the former Soviet republics like Ukraine, Russia, Hungary, Poland. So this is important because loneliness, oh yes.
Is there a like textbook definition of loneliness, or is it just a feeling of
Oh, no,
loneliness?
there is a textbook definition, I just didn't include it. It's the notion of perceived social isolation.
Oh,
I could tell you more, but I don't want to.
not just to hear because these three
Yeah,
studies were-
they have a specific definition. It's about the perception of social isolation.
Okay.
And it's different than being just alone. Yeah, so loneliness is really important because it affects both our mental and our physical health. In the recent meta-analysis of studies on loneliness, that just means they studied a whole bunch of papers that studied loneliness. It was found that, this is really surprising to me, that living with air pollution increased your odds of dying early by 5%, living with obesity 20%, excessive drinking 30%, and if you're lonely, if you feel lonely, it increases your odds of dying early by 45%. Like, that's huge. And so according to the research, and this is a serious problem, it means that loneliness is actually a very serious public health risk. You're all here today because you're interested in technology in some way, and as you probably know, technology and social media is one of the contributors to loneliness. Some studies have shown that we touch or check our phones anywhere between 150 to over 2,000 times a day. That's huge. And other studies have shown that the mere presence of a phone on a table between two people, even if it's turned off, it seems to block connection between people. Social media is a big contributor. It leads to us to believe that other people have these picture-perfect lives, like look how beautiful I am, look how rich I am, look how happy I am, look how successful I am, and it doesn't actually show reality. This leads to people to engage in constant comparison and leads to a feeling of low self-worth. And yeah, research also shows that this leads to more isolation and more loneliness, even though these technologies were supposed to connect us originally. Studies show that we are now relying much more on technology and much less on each other. Many people would rather talk than the other way around. Many people would rather text than talk. And this is really problematic because face-to-face interaction, seeing somebody, like hearing their voice, touching them, hugging them, whatever, it really, really matters. Studies show that this face-to-face contact actually boosts our immune resilience to illness and chronic disease, and it even increases your IQ. Another really fascinating study showed that face-to-face contact actually switches on and off the genes that regulate immune response to cancer and tumor growth. This was really fascinating to me when I read about that. So what is the way forward? This is part of the Humane Tech Meetup, and according to the Center of Humane Technology, they propose this idea of humane design, so realigning technology with humanity's best interests. So we as designers, whether or not you're in technology, whether you're a consumer of technology, you have the power to think about how such technology should be designed. And what are our best interests? Well, today we're talking about designing to get a sense of connection and more of a sense of belonging. So in this meetup today, what I want to propose is this question: how can we design interactive technologies that connect strangers in public spaces? So you're probably wondering, why strangers? Why not your close friends or your family? Well, one of the reasons is that research shows that we're becoming more and more isolated and polarized in our own bubbles. We tend to stick with people that we agree with us, that are similar to us. So reaching out to a more diverse group is better for society in general. And why public spaces? Well, it's where people gather, and it's a really good space to build community. So before I ask you to go and brainstorm around this topic, I want to share some things that inspired me on this topic of what we could do in this area. Am I talking too fast?
No. No. Perfect.
So one example is called Traffic Lights Pong Game. It's called Activate by a German company actually called Urban Invention. And what they do is that they set up, when you cross the street you have to press the button, but instead of that you can actually play a game of ping pong with whoever is across the street. So this is a really fun example of how you can prompt an interaction between strangers that otherwise wouldn't have happened. And then the video they had, often people played the game, they laughed about it, and as they crossed the street, maybe they gave each other a high five or laughed or...
This could go both ways, right? If you lose really terribly like Germany did today, you might lead to violence on the streets.
You might be
That would be very
right.
careful.
Always.
Violence.
Let's connect.
Violence. Violence.
Another example is by Coca-Cola called Small World Machines. So basically they wanted to improve relationships between India and Pakistan, and they set up 2 vending machines that were connected digitally. On the left-hand side is like India, and on the right hand is Pakistan. And when people come close, there's a webcam. So this is me on one side, and this is the other person on the other, and it gives you an instruction like join hands. And if both people join hands at the same time, it'll ask you to draw a peace sign like you see on the left there. And if both people do that collaboratively, you get a free Coke. And it's kind of fun because it's not just the people that are doing the interaction that are influenced by this, that are feeling more connected, but all of the observers and passerbys, they're engaged and they're excited about this. Another example is called nextdoor.com. It's a private social network for your neighborhood. So basically you input your address, your home address, and then you get connected to people in your neighborhood. So let's say I have a piano and I never use it, and I want to have somebody who's a musician come and play it anytime they want. So I could do that with it. Or let's say I need a babysitter last minute, Thursday night, and you could connect with your neighborhood that way. And their motivation here was that your neighborhood is actually one of the most important communities in your life, and we want to engage people to connect with their neighborhood more. This one is this was actually the first thing that ever inspired me into this topic. It doesn't have any technology, but I love that it's so simple and very profound. So this was called Before I Die by an artist called Candy Chang. And she just turned an abandoned building and she put a huge piece of chalkboard on it and stenciled Before I Die, I Want to. And she just left it alone as an experiment for one night to see what would happen. And overnight, people had written tons of things on it, anywhere ranging from very deep and philosophical things like, before I die, I want to reconnect with my father. Other people wrote more funny things like, before I die, I want to eat more cheese or something. So it kind of ranged from everything. And this was really inspiring to me because I loved how simple it was and how it really got people to share their internal struggles, their fears, their worries, which is something that's very different from what you see on social media, which is this more kind of superficial sharing. In another work by Candy Chang, the same artist, she also had a work called Confessions, where people would go into these booths and write any kind of confession that they wanted to. And then she later organized this into a museum exhibit. So as you can see, people shared a lot of really personal things. And what's really interesting here is that after she curated it into a museum exhibit, you could see that no one is alone in their struggles. Everybody really has the same struggles across all of humanity, regardless of culture or age or, yeah. So I found this also very inspiring. So I kind of talked briefly about these 6 examples, and now we're going to transition to brainstorming, because you guys are all experts in whatever field you come from, and you have your own experiences with loneliness, connection, technology, and yeah. So I would like to ask you, do you guys all have paper with you and a pen? If you need it, just raise your hand and I'll grab some. Roll and didn't come prepared.
No.
Yes.
Who needs one?
People need one.
Yeah.
Just
I'm yeah.
Here are some paper sheets, so you just
So,
So maybe for a better brainstorming experience, first of all, just write as many ideas as you have in your mind without going in detail. Just write for 4 minutes all ideas that you have, how people can connect better in public spaces or whatever, okay? So this is like the first one.
Good ideas.
Any ideas? Any ideas? Also bad ideas, so don't judge them now. Just write them down, okay? 4 minutes for that, and then we go to the next step. Just make a list. Don't make it very fancy. Just make a list.